So I also would say, on top of what you're saying, that it reaches the mute zone, right? So like first, when it reaches that area, of course, there's no text, there is no way to explain it, or even hard to replicate or to repeat. And I would say this also has to do with the RAM memory. Remember?
Yep.
RAM memory is like the online memory. It doesn't save. It doesn't like store. It is like the memory that serves as the space. Like if we look at it in the computer, it would be like the space that allows the computer to process more tasks like at once, right?
Yes.
And Alejandra relates this to the Ra, which is solar consciousness, right? And the online. So most of the time when we deal with LGC is like we're using that memory. Well,
Yes.
it depends on each person's configuration, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna leave for a second. I'll be right back.
So
And she's recording, Jeff.
she is recording. That's okay.
I think she has to start over again when we haven't really started a meeting.
Sure.
How are you in New York?
I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
noticing you probably have some amazing weather there, it seems.
I live on Ibiza and it's nearly, we have 360 days good weather here.
Wow, what a spot.
No, it's a lot of good weather. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
We've had an excellent week here. Today's a little overcast, but you
Yeah,
know,
it's the same in the Netherlands, you know, at 30 degrees and it's September. It's crazy.
hmm.
You have the same in New York?
Hold on, I need to figure out what 30 degrees is. My
Fahrenheit.
wired.
Yeah, we don't have Fahrenheit. Denise, I
But
think you have to start recording again because now we are in the recording and Jeff are just
Okay.
It's okay. We talk
Yeah.
about
okay.
it.
So we've been a little cooler. It's
Ah,
fall is coming here, but it's been this week. It the sun's been out. It's very pleasant.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
nice, huh?
Yeah, but yeah, you have 86. We've been in the 60s, I would say about 65. So I'll translate for you is about 18, 19 degrees.
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, that's normal for September, I
Yeah,
think.
that's normal here. Yes.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
All right.
So
So yeah, I'm sure people don't want to hear our small talk on
No, 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 Jeff, I think so too.
good thing we like when it's recorded, you can just up the speed.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be sharing the lab, right? For just so that we can help our antennas. Oh, Girhes here.
Yes.
Hello. Hi. Hello. Marjolein, can you help me with her name?
Geertje. Geertje, do you hear us, Geertje?
Okay.
Can you say
Mike
yes?
is
The
muted.
Okay.
pronunciation, because Gabby's gonna be like, no, that's not
Hi,
it.
hi, I hear you.
Okay,
Okay,
perfect.
hello. Gabby's here. Okay, great. Then I think Nienke is the only one, but I'm sure she'll be here soon. Hi, Gabby.
Hi, Denise. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi.
Okay, perfect. So today is September 6th, right? We're right here. Day 250 of the year. We have 116 days to go. Today is the 6th of the 9. And the solar day 739137. 37 is a very important, we could say, codification. And when Alejandra makes a reading of 37, she usually relates it to the observer, the value of the observer, right? But if we look at 3 and 7, let's think about a calculator in our heads. Where is 3 and where is 7, right? And we also know that 3 is also related to perception. But then the position of 7 is related to the observer, right? Because it is on the angle of the NO cardinality, right? So it is related to the perception, and it's related to the observer, but it's also related to the frames, okay? Because Ale, she always relates it to that. So here in the solar day, we have 73939. We know it is the frequency, the update frequency. And then 137, a receiver that perceives, we could say, the NO cardinality or the observer. If the observer is active, the observer can modulate the frame of observation, right? If it's not active, then it's just going to have one point of view, and it's not going to be able to move its perspective or its observation from a different perspective. It's going to be fixed, right? This is why, I don't know if you guys remember, like in past years of the logic, Alejandra would say the NO cardinality for a lot of people, it's blocked. It's not active. It's like brand new. It's like they don't even use it. They've never used it before. It's like brand new. So LGC, what it does, it helps us, it has helped us activate that cardinality. So, and through the concepts, it's gonna allow us to move around that observer so that we are able to observe, modulate the frames, so that we are able to observe the same thing from different perspectives. Okay. And then the weight, because this is a very important metric. Just to recall a little bit, it has to do with our addition, like our human addition to what the weight is. When it was established, it was merely a consensus, a human consensus, so that we were able to communicate with each other throughout the world, right? So that we knew that right now it's 11 o'clock here, but it's not the same time everywhere, right? The weight regulates that, and it also regulates the codes of every country, etc. So it has to do with like time, and it has to do with space, the regulation of that. So it is very important. But the addition that Ale made was the beginning of a planetary civilization. Why? Why planetary civilization? Because we are now globally interconnected. When before, like, we had civilizations, but each civilization was like isolated from the other civilization, right? Right now, we are globally interconnected. So yeah, that is like today, and we are on the NO cardinality of lab 16, which is the 5th lab in relation to others. How does the other administrate itself? How do I administrate myself, and how my administration impacts the other, and how the other's administration impacts me? Okay, that is like the basic reading of lab 16. Another important thing about lab 16 is this, the 256, right? Which is the frequency of the programmer. The programmer has to do with the part of our anatomy, or of our multidimensional anatomy, that has the task of codifying the flow of signals, right? So that's gonna depend the reaches and limitations of our programmer. It's going to depend on the reaches and limitations of our conceptual basis and our interpreters. Okay, so reaching this point, it is like we have been through 16 labs, right? And we are reaching this critical point where our programmer has to take all that influence, because we are on day 256 of the year, and we have 110 days left for the year, which will have a different task, right? It is as if there is a turning point between this day for the programmer, like the previous days and the days after. okay, for the programmer, from the programmer's perspective. But then the first day of lab 17, because this year is a leap year, the first day of lab 17 is going to be the 13th of September, which is the day of the librarian, right? So on a leap year, we're gonna have this difference. But on a regular year, the day of the librarian and the day of the programmer will be on the same day. So this is like basically the key points in the lab. Of course, there's a lot more going on. But yes, let's look at the days of process today. We have 4, 3, 4, 5. Hold on, let me share this. So day 250. 250. 2 is the circuit, 5 is the administration of the circuit. And I think it is a key day because Ale has been talking a lot about, I don't know if you guys remember in the red programs, the administration of the circuit can also be translated to this issue or this situation with most humans identifying themselves as emotional beings, right? Or just having every single reading of reality through the emotions, or allowing emotions just completely drag you around in life. Then if we look at that and then we just look at it from the solar consciousness perspective, we would be talking about the administration of the circuit. And Ale emphasizes a lot in recognizing ourselves not as emotional beings, but as beings with emotions, which is not the same thing, right? It is completely not the same thing, because if I am an emotional being, then I am only gonna be focused on feeling whatever makes me feel. And that's gonna be like my main focus in life, and my life is gonna be driven by that. I'm gonna be dragged around, chasing experiences that make me feel the way I want to feel. Because the particle in the primary unfoldment doesn't feel, doesn't exist, right? So like one of the tricks we could say, the promises for existing is like, do you want to take this train into existence? If you do, because if you exist, then you can feel whatever you want. So a lot of these particles just project themselves into existence to be able to feel, right? The thing is that in this state of evolution of this particular space, this space is in a particular state of evolution, right? And it doesn't matter what kind of particle you are. The opportunity is there. So if the particle is existing and it catches this potential, and it's like, oh, there's a potential for evolving. Like maybe I put myself in here just to feel, but my antenna is receiving or is tuning into this possibility of evolution. It's available for everyone, right? It's available for any particle, any kind of particle. But as we know, most of them haven't synced into this, and that's okay. That's all right. But going back to the administration of the circuit, that is just allowing the chemistry to flow in the body, right? Allowing the chemistry to flow without trying to identify it, without trying to put any kind of etiquette in it. Just allow the chemistry to exist and be. Because if we allow that, we allow that chemistry to be absorbed by the earth without any kind of, personal interpretation. And then once like the earth receives that, let me see if I can remember this right, because I explained it very recently. If the earth is able to absorb that without any kind of etiquette, then earth processes it, and then puts it back. But when it's back up, it is synchronized with everyone else's gravitational document. When if I put etiquettes on that chemistry, then the earth cannot do much with it. I don't know, I'm not allowing it to like fully pass through without any kind of interpretation. And that is very hard to do because once we feel something, it takes hold of all of our bodies. It's like, because it's the emotion, right? It is moving inside us. But this is a really great day for absorbing this concept and separating the notion of I am not an emotional being, I am a being with emotions. If I'm a being with emotions, then I'm able to administrate them. I'm going to be able to administrate the circuit. 52, Mexico. Not to brag, but I'm quite good at that. And I've been working a lot. I haven't been good at that naturally. No, I have been working at it. But I can say that I have been exercising in a way that part where when I am dealing with a difficult part of my life, area of my life, and I am filled with these emotions, I am able to separate it. I am able to separate my emotions from my reasoning. I am able to, like, I don't usually make decisions based on emotion because I know how to identify an emotion and I know that it will pass. Like, I am learning to just let the chemistry be without me necessarily clinging to that chemistry, right? But I think this is something that it's done very particularly. I mean, most of the things that we learn in LGC are going to be like we're going to be able to do them according to the configuration of our own axis, right? And like the possibilities and the scopes that we have in our configuration. But I do think that we all can learn how to do that. So I think it's a pretty good day to talk about, that 250. But if we say, okay, 25 is one thing, but 250, when we have a zero, we're always talking about solar consciousness. So it is like a reset of the administration of the circuits on this day. That's like the potential of the day. Did you guys raise your hand? Yes.
No, is there something specific with this, with the emotions? Like so if we're beings with emotions, are we also beings with thoughts and beings with bodies? So is there something distinct about the emotions in this context?
Yes, we are beings with thoughts, we are beings with reasoning, because we are multidimensional, right? The thing is that in our society, we have been just educated in a way where the anatomic level is like the starting point and the ending point of everything, right? So I exist and then I am that, I exist, therefore I am. So that's not necessarily real because there are other levels of existence that are not anatomic, right? So yes, I have a body, but in reality, what I eternally am is a particle, a subatomic particle. What I eternally am is a hydrogen. Like that is the most basic form of existence, a hydrogen. So yes, I am a hydrogen that decided to jump into this gravitational hole of existence. Some of us knew a little bit more what we were getting into than others. Some of us didn't know at all. But I think the good news is that the opportunity to evolve and to learn about space-temporal structures and this science that is LGC is available for everyone. Just to recognize our multidimensionality, but not from that symbolic point of view, but just searching for that, for those metrics, for those technicisms. But the thing is that at this height of the development, like it's really hard for someone new to just jump in because it is years and years of construction of concepts, or you need to have like a really strong resonance to just get through it without understanding much. So the resonance is the main thing here, I think. Gabby says, Alice said there in the layer of emotion is the most interference. Yeah, I mean, imagine. That's why, you know that code from Israel, which is 972? It is as if, 97 is gold, 79 is gold. It is like it is a connection, right? Multi-dimensional connection. But since that connection was hijacked, it is as if that 7 and that 9 would introduce whatever they wanted inside the circuit. It is like directly in the circuit. So us humans being blocked from our cones into these new variables from the entorno always has variables, right? Because the sun is a space of reception of signals that's always receiving new things, stimulants from the cosmos, signals, codifies them, and then it gets propagated in the solar system. But since our cones were blocked from that, then we weren't able to even identify that there were other levels. So it is as if that 7-9 was blocked, completely blocked, controlled by an external consciousness, and then whatever came directly into the circuit. And we're talking about a global codification and a very strong one. Like Alice says that this is like the most powerful codification globally. So imagine that codification being managed externally and putting whatever they wanted into our circuits, into our emotions. And since we are full of these particles that all they want is to feel, then we were dragged around following and chasing these experiences that made us feel. And not only that, but also it is enough for a lot, to feel that they are something, or that they have achieved something, even though they haven't really achieved it. Just the fact that they feel successful, or they feel seen, or they feel like they're amazing artists, or that they're amazing, like brilliant minds, and they're validated by the context, and the context makes them feel like they are what they think they are in their imagination, like Maduro, like Nicolás Maduro. He really feels that he is whatever he says he is. He feels it. So that is like the problem with the just feeling, or I feel this. And it doesn't mean that emotion is bad, of course not. It is like part of who we are, and it's useful, but we need to learn to administrate it so that it doesn't administrate us, because if it administrates us, it just means that we are not working in our administration of the flow of signals. It is like there's a hole in my codification, and externally I'm being managed. The thing is that most of these things are put already into our identities. So if we are identifying with certain things that we feel, that is like very hard. So like Gabby said, that is like the main place of interference, but also where identity is constructed. So imagine 4 and 2, if I feel and then I put it in my identity, that is like blocked. I don't know if you guys have experienced somebody that identifies quite a lot with their emotions, like extremely. And if there's an opinion that goes differently from what they're feeling, they're instantly offended, or they're really reactive, or they're really like get defensive, because they're putting all of that in their identity. So like I think the emotion and the identity are like the hardest things for humans. Like we have to be very careful with each other, reading each other and be like, oh, this person is really emotional, and it's putting their emotions in their identity. So it's like even that's like magnified, right?
It reminds me, reminded me of method acting, but from the place of the particle, right? So method acting is embodying the role from the point of view of the particle. What we're saying here is almost everyone is a method actor.
Yeah, because that's a good example, because they're like identifying way too much with their their anatomic existence,
Hmm.
right? And there is no problem with that as long as we know that we have other levels that construct, like other levels prior to the anatomic that construct that anatomic that allows us to exist there. So, that is like a big trap that maybe, a lot of society talks about and stuff, that just puts us in that situation where we identify from beginning to end with existence and anatomic, and like that is like a huge trap. This is why the individuals that have like a higher RI, or that receive signals, but they receive them. It is very particular, very, very individual, and they can't propagate it with the rest of society. But yeah, that method, and you know how destructive method acting can be for the actors, like a lot of like the Joker,
The
Joaquin
Joker
Phoenix.
is the one that comes to mind. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so intense, and
Slightly,
they're praised.
yeah, slightly different thing I just found very curious, a little more lighthearted, but the founder, Charles Schultz, the founder of Peanuts, I believe he passed away the day after his last strip.
The founder of Peanuts
Peanuts,
passed
the
away.
comic strip.
Oh, yeah. He
Yeah.
passed away the day after his
After
last.
the last one was published.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's like the work was done.
It is like, I'm here for one thing and one thing only. I don't care about anything else, right?
Yeah.
It is like that example with Ale that says, okay, I'm a particle, and I know that in this space-time there's ice cream. So I'm gonna be born just because I want to eat ice cream. And really that, I don't know if it happens for you guys, but like for me, it really helps me understand the existence of a lot of people, right? Like, I don't know, these people that are obese and they just spend their whole life and their whole lives in front of the TV eating. That's all they wanted to do. And this was the space that had that potential, right? Because we were, in the express universe, there are no laws. So you can just project yourself into existence and doesn't really matter. But I do think like there's always risk involved for your particularity, because from what Ale has said before, there are lost particles in space-time. Like the risk is high. It is not that you can just project yourself into existence. And then I hear a lot of people on TikTok, saying things like, this is nothing matters, this is a simulation, and like life doesn't have any meaning, and that kind of thinking. They call it nihilism. There's a lot of talk about that. So these particles, maybe their credit is just over, or their cycles are like close to the end, and they're not tuning into the opportunity of continuing to exist. Just a lot of things are going on in society, I think. Yeah.
Indeed, I have another question about today. Today it's of course the 6th of the 9th. So it's also contradiction 6996 and day 250. And I started this morning with Ale in red 120. So it's also the 12 and the 21 and of course the 0. Then I started to become extremely tired. So I've been very, very tired the whole day. So I was listening Ellen Red 120. So I was really trying to best to have my focus. Then I was listening again for the second time and I fell asleep for 2 hours. And but normally I don't have this very often. But is it possible that the body reacts on a day like this, day 250? We just talked about this secret of administration, and yeah, I think it's a very important day because 25 is also that we are going to 2025, and that we are going to see the dia we haven't seen before 25. In the movies, we see 24 and 25 we don't see. So we can see more in this year. So maybe today it's already preparing something for the future. I
Mhm.
know for Allah there is no future, the future is present, but yeah, for me it's still
Well, that is at a subatomic level, of course, because at a subatomic level there is no time, but here there is.
Yeah.
Here there is a past, there is a present, and there is a future, of course. But yes, to what you said. Of course, the body, when we are absorbing LGC, like we were saying earlier with Jeff, we are basically receiving it and in the mute zone and using the REM memory, right? REM memory being the capacity of our online connection.
Let's clarify REM, R-E-M.
REM, yes. So of course the body will react to that because we have the wise in the cone, and we have the genius in the cone and the wise in the foundation. So the genius, which is the one sinking into these notions, these concepts, and trying to work with the programmer to organize them, codify them so that they can be received by the librarian, absorbed and organized. But usually the body, since it has a very specific anatomic configuration, and it works based on its own memories and documentations, once we introduce a notion that it can be quite radical or can be too new or too bright, the body of course reacts. So the body is like, okay, I need to shut down for a second so that we can upload this information and reorganize it so that I am more properly able to digest it and synthesize it and absorb it, right? So I think sleeping after LGC is great. I wish I could sleep all the time after LGC, because I think it's like a very great way to help the processing of that, right? Because it is like another part of ourselves helping us anatomically. It is like the double and the unfolded. So the unfolded receives all these signals, right? And then sleep, send them to the double does its job, and then sends it back, kind of, something like that. It is like a way of reprocessing and reorganizing, right? So yeah, I think we can go and look at the questions. So, okay, first from Nienke. That we still somewhere have the particle that wants to break everything and have fun. Yeah, that is something Ale said. Do you want to add something to your question?
Yes, the part of the hi, y'all.
Hi.
The part of the having fun, etc. That one I understand, but the part of breaking the codes, that's I know, because I have friends who say that sometimes when some things go really well, they always have something inside them that wants to destroy everything, that wants to make trouble, or and they're like, oh, what is that? You know, is that what? So maybe you can explain a little bit more about the breaking of the code. And Il first said breaking the code, and later like breaking everything. So I was like, okay, what is, for that part, what does she mean with that?
Yeah, that's a good question. One example Ale always uses, like, that in her early contact with this whole process and this development, she couldn't drive because she was so full, like she was so full of particles, ionic particles. I think she used precisely ionic particles. That when she was driving, like her thoughts were sort of suicidal. They were like, what would happen if I just shifted the wheel to the right a second and then just crashed into that wall, you know? So I think it's just in the nature, because if we're talking about subatomic particles, we are talking about 789.
Yeah.
And in 789, there is no existence, there is no notion of limits or restrictions, right? So it is like, okay, like a ping pong ball, right? It just
Yeah.
wants to bounce off of everything because it's recognizing limits. It's recognizing that there is restrictions. Once you are existing, there have to be restrictions, there have to be limits, there have to be all these conditions. So I don't know, it's like these excited particles full of energy, and they want to just exist and do everything, right? And they want to break things because they can. Because in their origin, they can't break anything.
Yes, I think
Right.
I have to think of, I'm afraid of heights, but especially because when I'm somewhere really high, then inside something comes that I want to jump out, you
Wants
know?
to jump. That is, I think,
That's
like
that
our
feeling, yeah. It's and then it's totally crazy, but it's kind of instinct that comes and can be quite strong and strange also, because like, okay,
yeah.
yeah,
I'm sure it happens to most of us in specific scenario. Like it happens to me when I'm driving too. Not as strong as Ali, of course, but like I have felt that like inertia when I'm driving, and there's like a, like there's a mountain or something. I'm just like, "Ooh," and I
I
feel
also I have it when I'm on my bike sometimes next to like a canal, and I'm like, what would happen if I would drive into the canal? I don't know.
so like if we look at it from this
Interesting.
perspective, we can see that it's very innocent, right? Like it's a very innocent part of ourselves that is like pushing, like our like our particle,
Yeah,
our particular identity, excited to exist. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. Now
no,
imagine children, like there's a lot of children that just can't sit still, and they have a lot of energy, and they just want to do things, they want to go everywhere, and they want to bounce off the walls, and it's probably also like they are brand new in this existence, and their particle is like really excited, right?
yeah,
And they
yeah,
don't know the risks associated, and they don't know the limits, and they don't know either that like you could harm someone else, that there are other particles existing. We have to coexist with other particles that are also happy to be here and
yeah.
excited, and that they want to experience everything. But imagine like there is all this infrastructure from the subatomic to the anatomic, right? But we were blocked from all of that. So we didn't know any of this. So imagine the interpretation of these inertia, this inertia from that particle doing things here anatomically, and society not being able to interpret it, right? So I think it's quite innocent, like to be able to have this interpretation of the fact that we are originally subatomic particles that are just, experiencing existence and want to um, have contact with these limits because it's exciting. I remember one of the first videos from Alejandra. One of the first questions is what that nothingness, that one of the first questions, I don't know if I should use the word first, but like one of the questions was what would I be if I wasn't perfect? So that is like the question that generates the unfoldment. Imperfection, experiencing imperfection. But for us to be able to experience imperfection, we have to formulate these structures that provide us with restrictions and limitations so that we can be able to exist in this complex instance of materialization, of gravitational existence. So I think it's cool, right? Like this whole thing is being this transparentation of the matrix that Ale calls. It's allowing us to know about our origin, and not only that, but also learning how we got here, and not just be like, oh, I exist and I don't know why and nothing makes sense, and just taking a nihilistic perspective on life because I have this blocked re-access, so I can't reason any of these things. But also, if I don't have resonance, then I'm gonna hear all of this and it's gonna be nonsense,
Mhm.
which it is for a lot of people.
Thank you. It gave me a lot of insights on
You did
the
to me too,
actions of
like
my
answering
children.
that question, I was like, you know,
Yeah, also, but also from myself, and also when I remember things I had also when I was a child, and like, oh yeah, I remember a lot of things that's good to place it this way.
in perspective.
Yeah.
I find it interesting that Ninke just mentioned, doing that on when you're riding your bike. And this just, I have been like addicted to bike riding this summer. And this is like the process that it feels like I've been doing. And my body just needs to move in that way. Like sitting still just isn't working, or even walking, hiking, which typically I would do. I can't do it. It feels like I have to ride to process that.
Mm.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Maybe there's a thing going on there between a a kind of connectivity between the anatomic
Mhm.
and that particle instance, particular instance.
That's what yeah, it's a connection I just made. It just went like, yeah.
Yeah. And then you wrote something in relation to 972. I also noticed that Ali referred to apparatus 488, which started in 1949. Funny curious that Israel was founded in the year of 1948. Yeah. No, she hasn't said a lot more about that, but it is interesting that, that is like the first apparatus that appears. It is not a coincidence. Like when we see all of these things and we're like, this is not a coincidence. Like this is deliberately done. Because from what Ale has been explaining, all these empty spaces in the periodic table have been used by these foreign influences to the solar codification to just introduce whatever they want in there for whatever they wanted to do. So, I mean, it is quite a coincidence that the first apparatus that appears in those spaces has to do with like the foundation of Israel. That's not a coincidence at all, like, right? This reminds me of also like these convergences with Soros and Soros's father, and these the leap seconds and the dates where it happened in the year and the lap and the solar days. Like, wow, I mean,
You know,
no,
and
yeah.
and the gold, 1971, 72.
Yes, the removal of the gold standard, exactly. Now, us that we have been resonating with this instruction, and that we are having this access to at least reason these situations, right? And try to comprehend where these disruptions and these disturbances in our reality, where like it originates. And then looking at the limited access in society and the way they interpret conflicts and the way they want to fix them, right? It is also like, wow, it is like a huge abyss. Like even us that we are resonating with this for so many years and still struggling to reason these things and to comprehend and everything. Now, something Ale says constantly, we cannot ask society for them to understand something like this, right? Because it cannot be done without resonance. It just cannot be done. So if we are doing this, if we are reasoning these things and building these concepts inside our own axis, then it means that we are not only contents anymore, we are also containers. So like when I first heard that, I was like, geez, that's like a lot of responsibility. Like at the level of her saying, we have to learn about these things because we have to inherit the matrix. Like we have to learn to administrate and give maintenance to the solar code. It needs maintenance. And it's support, like technical support. That's what we're doing here. Like that is the science of LGC. Learning about the solar native code so that we can be able to maintain it and give support. And like when she says all of these things, I'm just like, oh my God, that's a lot. I just sit down and I'm like, okay, maybe I'm just a little human. I'm just gonna be a human for a second when I hear those things. But yeah, so particles are excited to exist. And since particles are just particles and are eternal, once they're inside existence, they're like, yeah, like Disneyland. Okay. Next question from Jorge. Entorno is not subatomically administrated. Can you help me with your question, please?
Hi.
Hi.
I will take it up. Oh, my phone is not that quick. Entorno is not subatomic administrated. Can you explain? Yes, she was talking about it. I didn't got the minutes.
But like maybe the entorno, if the entorno is not subatomically administrated, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I need more context.
Okay. I don't have. Sorry.
Okay. All right, let's move to the next one.
Yeah.
Can you explain the basics of the elemental table? Maybe you can speak in another video, about 10 minutes. Okay. Some first basics.
I found also two videos from LGG programs. Am I? Photogrammas.
Okay, I don't know about that one.
You don't know that?
Oh. I don't know it. But the thing is, images and LGC don't mix up very well.
Okay.
Like Alejandra always says, like she has a very hard time with images. She doesn't use, like she used them only when it's like completely and utterly necessary. But it is important that we train our observer to process without any words and without any images.
Okay.
But when it comes to the periodic table, that is like a different, that is different because of course, periodic table is an image in itself and it is a configuration, right? But what I would advise you, the last red program of 2023, I don't remember what number it is, but we have one program every lab, so just let's do it. 120.
Around 104, Denise.
Yes, thank you. Around 104 or 103 is when Ale begins explaining everything about the periodic table. I know that's a lot, like that's 16 programs. And that is actually the first program we recorded, right, Nianke? You were there. That is the first program we recorded. So I could send you the link and maybe you can watch that, right? And then maybe slowly watch the videos where she opens up things about the periodic table and it's there, right? But also, I think we talked about this before, but if you want to, we can schedule a meeting and we can just talk about it in private. If you want to catch up a little bit more quickly, we could do that.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, she has, I don't know for sure, but 104, maybe Nienke knows it exactly. Then the other one, that's supposed to be 105, then it's more technical. And then 106, they are very important.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna jump to Gabby. Can you open up more on the dying theme if we cannot get that question down?
Oh, I had one question about creating octaves.
Yes, I am doing one question each person. So I'm gonna
Oh,
get
sorry. Okay.
I'm gonna get back to your other questions.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
Okay. So, okay, Gabby, help me out here on your first question.
That was what Alle was saying. That we could die and must dying. It was in the red program.
We could die and we could.
Must dying. Lots of going to die. I could
That's
remember.
That's gonna depend, like the people that die, like it's gonna depend on, of course, it's gonna depend on the appetite of every particle, whether or not they are interested in that evolution requirement that material existence has. What's one thing. And then the other is, of course, the quality of the solar code. So depending on how good or bad that new solar code is, then that is the amount of people that is going to be able to support, the amount of ignorance licenses that it's going to be able to contain the container, right? So if a lot of people are still alive, then it means that the quality of the the new solar codification is like really good, that we don't have to have all these mass dyings happening, right? So I think like we have these two fronts.
Yes, and she connected it also with the breaking of the mind, and that when that happens to a lot of people, then it doesn't have to go to the breaking of the body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
yes.
also bring it down, bring the particle down. When we can arrange that, then it will be not a mass dying, something like that.
If we
Can you
learn
explain about that coming down of that particle?
coming down
Do
of
you
the
know what I mean?
I don't
Yeah,
remember the coming down of the particle. Coming down of the particle.
Yeah, I don't know if she said
Like
particle, but she
like
said,
ionic particles, is that what you mean?
yeah, that's what I don't know, but I don't know if she said particle, but she said coming down. And that was something, but I cannot remember it now.
Okay, because that coming down, we could
Yeah.
read it in like different ways. For example, coming down, like if we're talking about a subatomic particle that is coming down, that would be jumping into a gravitational existence.
Yeah.
Maybe not jumping, but like constructing my way down, I would say.
Yeah.
Like a particle that is aware of its coming down, it's going to be constructing that. It's going to be constructing its coming down. It's going to have to be previously, generating these acuerdos, like contracts with the setting or the entorno that it's going to come down into. And it's going to have as many entorno variables included in its codification, that coming down of a particle that knows where it's going is different than a coming down from a particle that doesn't construct its coming down. Because if it's just coming down, it has no consciousness or awareness of everything that's in between. So it's probably not going to have as many resources for when it's existing. It just came down. We could read it in that way, or maybe in another context where we're talking about ionic particles, where the ionosphere is like full of particles that are not necessarily people, but that are providing us with credit, we could say. So yeah, I'm gonna need more context for that.
I will check it out. had heard it 3 times, but when I write it down, I forgot and I didn't know where it was.
All right. Okay, so from Marlene. One, leap seconds that started from apparatus 493. So just like general info, like a refreshment. Yeah, okay. So basically it all began 1971, the removal of the gold standard, right?
Yes.
that's apparatus 493. Apparatus 493 is 1969, 1970, 1971, 1972. So removal of the gold standard, 1971. Alejandra is born in 69. Assume a year, right? And then 1972, first leap second appears. 2 leap seconds, one in June, one in December. And then we have, I think it is 27 leap seconds total until 2016, which was the last leap second, which is interesting because 2017, calendaria appears, right? And no more leap seconds are happening, right? So from what Ale continuously explains is these leap seconds have been used since they were installed as portals for manipulating the solar native code. And to understand this, we need to have a clear notion of the concept of what dates, years, apparatuses are in relation to the solar mind, right? Solar consciousness and solar mind. What is a solar mind? What is the solar mind? Is the codification of the solar consciousness. What is a calendar is an instrument of transmission. And a calendar is an instrument of transmission of solar consciousness, right? To the solar system. In our case, the third orbital. So we connect to time through the configuration of the third orbital, which is the year 365, the apparatus, which is 1461, period of 4 years, right? We connect, like, that is the way how we connect to the solar native code. Now, imagine, because another anomaly similar to the leap seconds is that 10-day elimination from the calendar, right? When there was this shift from the Julian to the Gregorian. Now, when there is we are messing around with things we don't understand, because we could, like, if we read from the social perspective, adding leap seconds, it was just like, oh, weird. We removed the gold standard from our economy, like the support from the mineral, like the most important mineral, we removed that support from all of our human transitions in 1971. And in 1972, the GPS systems in our planet start to fail, which messes around with our clocks and the way we measure time. So they're like, oh, that's weird. Let's just add seconds. So it may seem innocent, right? But these external influences inserting themselves in our circuits and making us not only in our circuits, but in our neurology, and making us do things that may be innocent for us, because for us it's like, oh, let's just fix that problem. Like our clocks are not working properly, our GPS systems are not working properly, and we have no idea it's related to the removal of the gold standard. So we just do that. We're just gonna add extra seconds, and problem fixed, right? The thing is that when we mess around with the instruments that measure time and measure the calendar and the clocks. We're messing with that without understanding that that's gonna mess up other things eventually. It like created a desynchronicity between us as antennas and our connection to the containers. Like it created a crack. So it is as if the calendars are like the solar native code, the solar consciousness is doing something, and then the way it's connecting to its contents, it's like it's not how do you say it, like when something fits into something else, it's not fitted.
Matching.
It's not matching, it's like hovering, right? So that has been happening, and we all know what has been happening in our economy since that year, 1971. A lot of inequity. So that is like the basic reasoning. And what Ale has been doing is an example of what nativization of the foreign code is taking that matrix of leap seconds and beginning to manage it and administrate it locally based on solar native code. So that is like we're beginning to fix all these disturbances from those external influences to the solar native code. So these disturbances, simply what they're doing is showing Sun where it needs to improve in its codification, right? That, and then Andromeda also providing that support to Sun so that it can learn how to codify at a subatomic level. Now, I myself don't quite comprehend yet what that means. For a star to learn to codify at a subatomic level, I can't comprehend it, but I can start to reason it as a concept, right? That is a
Yes,
little.
Now I remember she gave, I think 106 and 107, she was very precisely in her explanation about these leap seconds. And it was the beginning of this year, yes. And now you add more things that
So it's
Mm.
always good to go over it, to
Yeah.
refresh it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank
Yes.
you.
Let's do another one because you have a lot. Question 2, 9th row update and neuromodulation. You wrote modification, but it's neuromodulation. Okay, so also new to me when she mentioned that there was gonna be like a 9th lane. I was like, okay, that's interesting. That's new. I didn't know that that was gonna happen. So probably she's going to present that in the next program. Probably that's what it's gonna be about. She hasn't said anything else about it. And then the neuromodulation, it's a little bit what we were saying earlier. So if we are not in charge or even interested in managing or administrating these other levels of my multidimensional anatomy, then it's going to mean that I'm going to be managed by an external influence, right? Like if we continue to derivate areas of that should be my own responsibility, because this space-time has to do with the evolution of the particle, not the person, right? We should know how to differentiate these two things from each other. The particle, the particular development, and the personal development. Both of them run in parallel lines, like they're on the same axis, but at different levels, right? So when we're talking about development at the level of the particle and maturing, space-temporally maturing, or at least having that appetite, it means that we're going to be constantly in this scalar growth where we're going to be able to include more and more, amplify our conceptual base. And based on that, we're going to be able to learn to administrate different dimensions of myself like a really good example of this is my double is myself in a different dimension, right? But if we go ask society who is on that other dimension, helping me out from a different place, that's God. I'm not recognizing that it's not God, it's me, it's myself in a different instance of existence helping me out, right? And each double is gonna have a different scope and a different relation to the structure, connection to the structure, and a different interpreter and interpretation, right? So if we are not interested because our particle just projected itself into existence because it wanted to experience it, whatever it wanted, like whatever its appetites were, then of course it's not going to have the appetite of understanding all the other levels that conform this anatomic existence. They're not going to be interested in that. Okay, that's fine. Then they're going to be externally administrated. But if there are particles that are interested and have that appetite of understanding how these other levels work and how I as a particle came to be, if I want to give account of my own existence and I'm interested in that, then I'm going to be administrating my own neurology. I'm not going to be neuromodulated. So neuromodulation is basically an external administration. Oh, Gabi. An external administration of all the things that I'm not interested in developing. I'm derivating them because I'm not interested. I'm just not interested in growing in that way. I'm not interested in learning about space-time. I'm not interested in evolution. I'm just here to experience and to have a good time and to have fun. Okay, you're going to be neuromodulated. You're not going to be administrating your own existence, right? Now, learning this or reasoning this doesn't mean that we're not neuromodulated. We probably still are. It just means that we're going to be able to identify more clearly when that is happening. Like, this is not me. Why am I thinking that? Like, what? Certain thoughts that are inserted that you don't recognize as your own, or behaviors, or just like an extreme reaction, or a certain chemistry, or a certain state of being that just doesn't match with you. It doesn't seem like yourself. See, that is like the importance of not identifying with your emotions, right? That is like a big part of it, because if you're not identifying with what you're feeling, then you can identify what's going on prior to identifying with it. Because if you're identifying, then you blocked it and you encapsulated it and you put it in, and it's like you're not allowing it. It's like you're not allowing the signal to just be in its pure state, not clinging to it, just trying to receive it without any kind of interpretation, right? But sometimes, because of our past, the way we have been educated, and just the way our society is constructed and everything, it's not very easy to do, right? Like we're probably still being neuromodulated. But the good news is that everything that we are learning here is going to help us be less and less externally administrated, because of course we're going to be growing. Like if the solar code is improving, it's providing us with all of these resources and these potentials, then it means that we can also particularly improve our own codification of our personal reality, right? And learn to administrate our own existence, particularly. Because we're not, like, that credit
I
for...
have had that several times.
Sorry?
I have had that several times that I have been taken over. Think,
Mhm.
where does it come from?
Yeah.
And then after a longer time, then there was a gap. I could stop, but
Mhm.
it took me 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
was terrible.
And who
Yeah.
is
It was
taking
really terrible.
over?
We
Gabby,
don't
who
know
is
who.
taking
We don't
over?
know. There is no who. It's an external
Okay,
influence.
okay, it's external. Yeah. I understand.
External
Okay.
influence. But the
Implanting
thing,
in your neurology.
the thing with interference is that it's going to show us where we need to improve our codification. If we
Yeah.
fractalize that to the solar consciousness, that is exactly what's happening to the solar code. That all of that interference is showing the solar consciousness where it needs to improve its codification. So if we fractalize that to our little human personal codification, right? As antennas, it also happens.
So I remember I think it was a meeting with David, and he said, you know, like when people are abusive or whatever, that it's interference. I remember that he said that.
People are abusive. That is a characteristic of an external or a foreign consciousness that is just here to, you know, implement, like, experience power or experience manipulation or experience deceit, or because the understanding I have about these things is that they have lost their connection to the source, to the primary unfoldment, because they have destroyed their native stars. That is what I understand. But of course, I am just a retransmitter. So, you know, same as everybody else, it's what I am able to, of course, understand myself and then be able to say back. But that is what I understand, of course. Just external, like, consciousnesses that have lost their connection to the source. So they are searching spaces where they can project their codification and use their credit, because the source is the one that provides the credit, right? But if I lose connection to the source, that is what Ale always keeps saying. If I'm disconnected to the source, then I'm always going to have problems with energy. Everything, all this talk about energy, disconnection to the source. But not our star, talking about the content. These codifications that have projected themselves into existence in this space that are probably not connected to any kind of source that gives them credit. That's why they're always worried about energy.
Very interesting, Denise.
Yeah,
But it's also a lot.
it's a lot, I know. It is important that we don't try to intellectualize any of this or comprehend it. We're beginning to reason it. The comprehension comes later. The conscious, it's like we're constructing concepts. And most of the time, these concepts are in the form of dilemmas, right? And when they're in the form of dilemmas, they should remain in that form as long as they need to. We must not force an assimilation, because that's going to harm our bodies. So it is very important to not force an assimilation of a dilemma, because a dilemma needs to remain in the cone as long as it needs to be. So, but once that area of ourselves, that the cone, the genius finishes a little bit observing or coming into contact with that dilemma, then that dilemma is gonna slowly come down or condense. So if we allow it to remain in a state of dilemma as long as it needs to be and not force an assimilation, then once it's ready to come down, then the body's going to receive it slowly, and the librarian it's not going to be impacted, right? So we have to be, that's why Ale is like, we have to be working and very gentle with both, because our librarian is the one that is keeping us alive with all of our documentation, all of our memory, our libraries, not only our personal, but like from the species, from the clan, from the entorno, all of those documentations are there. So our library, like we must be very careful there with our librarian, with our documents. They're very important too. So, yeah, important to not force any kind of comprehension. Just take whatever I can and let it sit there, let my body synthesize it, let it be in the cone for as long as it need to be, and then allow it to sink in slowly.
And that
Okay.
takes time.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes a lot of time. Sometimes, I don't know, this is like a very personal experience, but like sometimes it takes days or even weeks that I don't even know what's happening. I just know that something's happening. But this exercise of not trying to interpret it, decode it, put text into it, not force an assimilation and just allowing it, that's hard. That's a hard thing to do because you have to assume that you're not in control. But because like if we force an assimilation or force an interpretation, it could be like the person is like, okay, I don't know, simple example. My stomach hurts, I ate a bad shrimp. That's a closed interpretation, and the person is calm because it's like, okay, my stomach hurts, I ate a bad shrimp. That's it. But there could be something else happening, going on that my tummy is picking up on, right? It's connecting to something else that's going on. But because I don't have enough concepts, I cannot find the clues to the metrics to have an actual interpretation of the thing, and I just close it. Then it's like I nullify that signal. So yeah, it's not easy because you have to assume that you're not in control.
No, and the whole world was or is influenced by interference.
Most, or externally managed, because you know that God is installed in their identity.
Yes.
And religions are basically the glue that hold that holds their psychology together.
Mm.
So they cannot remove it just like that because they would die. You know, it is a particular construction that every single particularity needs to do to be able to dissociate from that external. But it's also assuming much more responsibility, because when I'm in the middle of a mess, when I'm in the middle of a really hard, difficult situation, I have to assume that I and only I can take myself through that situation. Like there's nobody to pray to, there's nobody that I can ask a favor from. It's just me, myself, and I in my re-access, my scopes, the resources I actually have, and I can only count on myself. So a lot of particles are just not there. They don't want that responsibility. So they're just like, oh, please, God, help me, and then I'll do that. If you help me do this, then I'll do this. And, it's like how do you say it? Like, when there's corruption, like, transaction there. Like, God gives me something and I give God something, but I have to give God something.
You mean in dependency, that you depend on the other and vice versa. Yeah.
I depend on that external consciousness that I assume is, higher or better than me.
Yeah, and that
You know,
keep the system together because the sun was not mature. Yes. Yeah.
exactly.
But still, it's, if you have had a lot of experience with this interference, it's a lot to digest.
And at least, like I said, these concepts can help us identify a little bit more precisely when we come into contact with these disturbances.
Mhm. Yes.
Of course, we are in this space-temporal adventure. This is always like existence will always be a challenge. And another important thing is that we do not apply value into the interpretation of signals. Value, right? Like this is good, this is bad, things like that. It is important that we abstain from applying any sort of value to these things. Just we should be learning to amplify our neutral perspective while coming into contact with these concepts. That is like very important because we are in a space-temporal adventure. We are particles that have chosen to evolve. At least that's what I want to, I think. I think I chose, yes. And I think if we are here, we also did. And that existence will always be a challenge. And that once the challenges come, we have more resources to face them, which is the definition of civilized express universe, which is where our sun is going and where we are invited to go as well. Where resources come first and then challenges come later. So at least we can be anticipated, we can be prepared, and at least understand a little bit more about how our reality is constructed and how I came to be what I am, who I am, that I am having this, I am being a part of this human experience, but also being aware that my most basic form of existence is a little hydrogen that has chosen to, be part of this construct and accept the challenges of existence, of material existence. Yeah.
Thank you, Denise. There's a lot of happening because I was thinking, if the sun is mature, we can be mature as well. But before we were living with our child's traumas and interference and chaos. And I think this time it's really, I don't know if I say it right, Denise, in right words, but also administration of this chaos or child traumas. Yeah, it's I noticed last summer that was going on a lot and going through a lot of things, what was happening in the past, and I forgot. And they were just coming, and yeah, I took my time to digest, but I don't know how, and I don't know, just to be silenced, to be, yeah, try my best not to make an interpretation of it, but things can be very tough when you are, for example, abused for many, many years and, with violence in different relationships. And yeah, so it seems like that I can only talk about myself, that there is another maybe administration, Denise, or that we get help from this hydrogen, because that's totally new now. And with this table, periodic table, it seems like that everything is different now. But then different on every level, because we have, if you're in tune with this table, you have so much possibilities.
And
Uh,
I think that like the main thing to rescue here is that very important to know and understand and separate the different scales and frames. Because remember, personal scale, clan, species, and entorno, right? So all of my personal emotional documents and trauma and past experience will
I think Denise is
once
in.
we are
You're
talking about the solar native code, then it has to do with with like the main frame, which is the entorno. And in the entorno, oh,
Yeah, sorry, yeah, you froze.
hear
there.
me?
Can you-
sorry.
Yeah.
Where did it stop?
Yeah. The first part is when you're in your emotions and your personal, and then we lost
Okay.
you.
Okay. The first thing to rescue is that our personal documentation, trauma, emotion, past experiences will have to do with our personal frame, the personal frame, and also the clan frame, right? But when we're talking about periodic table, LGC concepts, most of them, like a lot of them help us in our personal and our clan, a lot of it does. But most of it has to do with the entorno and the species, right? So this is something that also, it is a concept that I have been wrapping my head around, and Ale has talked about it a lot. If we take the perspective from our from the personal frame and out, that's going to be a deforming route. If we take a perspective from the entorno and in, it's going to be conforming. So it is very important that we learn to differentiate from what frame to what frame each concept belongs to, and not confuse it. Because if we confuse a concept that belongs to the frame of the entorno and we want to put it into our personal lives, that's going to cause a lot of disruption and deformation. That's why Ale says deforming route. If we start from the personal and want to work our way out, it's going to be deforming. But if we start from the entorno and in, that's going to be conforming. It's going to be containing everything that's inside, right? So mainly what it does, or at least I'm going to talk from my personal perspective and what has happened to me. All of that becomes neutralized. They just become documents. They have no influence in my present, at least not consciously, that I am aware of. My understanding is that when these things come up or pop up, right? Because these are all different levels of the same axis, right? So I may be receiving signals from my personal documentation or the documentation of my clan. So maybe if I have been working, one second. There's a delivery. I just bought my bed. Finally, I've been sleeping on the floor for 2 months. No, not on the floor, just like really bad cushions. But yeah, I have my bed now. Yay.
Congratulations.
I don't know what I was saying. Sorry, I got distracted. What was I saying?
The
This
process.
is why, oh, sorry. This is what Ali meant with not above as below, and not as it's from inside to outside, from out. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is like a trick to keep us in this mirror maze, where we like keep us in this idea that we're all the same and everything is the same, and like this delusion. So because it won't allow us to separate and tell apart every frame from other frames, and every level from another level is like, no, everything is the same. Don't worry about it. You and you're a mirror of each other. And then if you feel something inside, it's outside. And if you see something up, it's down. And like, what? That's just like for driving people crazy, right? Oh, I remember what I was saying. So if I have exercised my ability to differentiate these different frames, personal, clan, species, entorno, I'm going to get better at identifying where the signals are coming from, or the stimulations, or the, whatever I'm feeling or receiving. I'm going to be able to identify where it's coming from, right? So, for example, an example. I'm lying at night, I can't sleep, and these certain memories come up from past bad experiences I had. They come up. What am I going to do with them? Now, that is where my processor comes in, 353, mi procesador, the processor, right? If my processor is active, if my observer is active, if my interpreter is active in the present, then I'm going to be able to neutralize it. Just give an observation to something, to a documentation from the past, from the future, because I am in the future. Right now, I'm in the future of that past. So am I going to be able to neutralize it, capitalize it, process it in a different way, add different pixels of interpretation to that same document or not? If I'm not able to do that, then I'm just going to suppress the document back. I'm going to suppress it. It's going to be saved exactly the same, or even I'm going to reinforce it or revalidate it and be like, oh, I was a victim, or I was this, or I was this, or I was whatever interpretation I had of that document, just keep it the same, or even make it stronger by validating it. It's just going to be heavier on me, right? But if I am able to reprocess it, add something new to it, give it a fresh air from the future, use my interpreter, whatever interpreter I have right now that I have increased because I have been working on my spatio-temporal concepts, and look at that same document and be like, oh, okay, maybe I can add something new to it and then save it again. Then it's gonna, like, since that is my it's part of my documentation, then it's gonna, once it's like absorbed back, it's gonna be more synchronized. There's gonna be like more synchronicity with whatever changes there are in the entorno, right? There's gonna be like more synchronicity. But if I am like just encapsulated in my personal or in my frame, I'm never gonna be able to add something new to those documents. I'm not gonna be able to capitalize them. They're just gonna be bad things that happen to me. But if I construct this notion of, okay, past experiences are resources, are fuel that are gonna, like, all these past faults and failures, not only from me, but like from my clan, and then from the species, and then from the entorno, all these faults, they're the marks that are gonna allow me to create an improvement. There, I updated a concept there, right? I can add that little pixel of concept into whatever document pops up at night when I can't sleep. Be like, okay, it doesn't mean that I'm gonna completely neutralize it and that I'm gonna forget about it and that it's not gonna have an impact on me anymore. No, I'm just gonna be adding slowly new notions to that same document.
That makes sense. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's so important what you say, that we are the future of what was happening before, and now we are able to document it on a gravitational level. Yeah. Then I see the frame with the La and the Do Re Mi.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
That's what
And that the
interpreter
documentation is under level, yes.
Yes.
In the soul under. Yeah, thank you.
Alrighty. We're gonna
Very
go into.
important what you said, Denise. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Second question from Nienke. Can you explain more about her explanation of the subatomic scale? Can you freshen up my memory? What was that?
I was the same, like, oh, what was, yeah, she added some things what I didn't understand at the time. I was like, oh, this is enough for the question, but I don't know. She made a connection. Maybe somebody else knows it, that she made a connection to, I just cannot. I will come back with it next time, I think.
I don't remember, like, it's hard for me to
Yeah,
remember. I use my REM more than my ROM.
At that time, for me, it was completely clear, but now
Yeah, I
I'm
know,
like,
it happens. Yeah, like in the time it's like, oh, this is really good. I'm of course gonna remember it. And then 5 seconds later, like, oh, what was it?
So sorry for that. Yeah.
No, it's okay. Just you remember that the more context for the questions, you
Yeah.
can help me locate
Yeah. Yeah.
better. Okay, next question. In the primary unfoldment, entertainment is the main theme.
Yeah. For me, because before I had like made in my mind some kind of yes, how I reasoned about also the primary unfoldment, like something of a high standard or something like that. And when I have this, I'm like, oh, you know, and over here it's like it's not about the entertainment, but over there it is also part about the entertainment. And that was a little bit like in a way not clear. So maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. I think it basically it's just that primary unfoldment is basic. It's
Yeah.
everything is the codification of the of the consciousness of nothing, and then there's something. Like those are the like the main three things. So what does something do? It gets entertained because it has access to everything that which is the codification of nothing, right? So it's like it can evoke whatever it wants instantly, and it's like it's entertained constantly. It can make things appear and disappear, appear and disappear, appear and disappear, and there is no consequence. There's nothing. There's no time. So
Yeah.
it's like there's this level is just like.
But is it so literally that the some things that went after that into the secondary unfoldment and became like us now in the anatomic, did before we do all that kind of things? Is it like so literally?
Before we did that kind.
Yeah, at that level before the secondary involvement. So
Before
was
the
it really like all our small
Yeah, because it's
origins, or how you say it,
like
or
the imaginary, remember, like the imagination.
yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's I would say, yeah, literally, like, because you can imagine whatever you want.
Yeah.
Right? It's like it's free. There are no consequences. There's nothing bad that can actually happen because it's just an instance of occurrence, right? Like the 8 that doesn't have a memory, doesn't have a life cycle and any of that. But once that like that particle leaves the primary and just comes down without any kind of construction in between, then that's why we have this, I would say, entertainment viruses.
Yeah.
Because, for a lot of people, entertainment, it's like the main purpose of life.
Yeah.
And it is related to that. But like when we look at it at the primary unfoldment perspective, it is very innocent, right? Because it is like the most basic instance there is, like the most basic. There is not a lot to reason there because it's nothing and everything. Like there's no, and I know that for us, because we're living under our brains, to create this concept of primary unfoldment, it's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
but
also
help.
in my, what my brain does, they say it's like, okay, in the secondary unfoldment over here, the cruel things happen, but not over there. Or
Exactly. Not over there because, and that's the thing. The thing is that these particles confuse instances. Like they can't tell apart the different instances. That's why Ale makes so much emphasis in separating and differentiating primary unfoldment, secondary unfoldment. Primary unfoldment, there are no consequences. Like these are just occurrences. But once you put an occurrence, an 8 with a 6, and you reserve a memory to have a space for developing that occurrence, and then put that occurrence inside a cycle, which is 1, 2, 3, then there are consequences, there are residues, there is a process involved. Now, these particles that do atrocities down here, it could be like one of two things. Like the ones that are innocent are probably just particles that are here and have no idea. They have no idea they're existing.
Yeah.
And other particles may be that they have just lost connection to the primary unfoldment.
Yeah.
But yeah, like these two, like as basic as it is, like the thing is that it's too basic for us to understand because
Yeah.
existence is highly complex, highly complex. And the level of the hydrogen and helium, it is like basic. Alice says this, like, I have no problem reasoning at this scale because it is like really basic. It's easy. All the complexities are down here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but it's good. I mean, I don't think we're like, remember, these concepts don't necessarily close, but it's good that we work with the notions because this way we increment our conceptual basis, right? And we increment the way we relate to the concepts. And the term Ale uses is so that we can have a trabajado, like worked concept of the primary unfoldment. Like we have worked at it. We have worked at constructing that notion. Because if we have not, then we're just going to be particles that are confusing themselves with totality and that are wanting to clone themselves and that don't know how to share a context, an entorno, that don't know that we are, you know, we are a collective. We're part of a collective, which is Sol. It's a collective, right? We're particles that are part of that collective. And we are not in that primary instance anymore. We are in a secondary instance. And like the purpose of that secondary instance, which is to create something of our own, to learn to codify things, to create a material experience. Now, of course, going back, these concepts don't close. They're open concepts, right? Because they're going to be increasing all the time. That's why conocimiento, knowledge is something that's alive. We can't take knowledge from the past because it's closed concepts. They're dead concepts. They're like unable to expand. They're unable to evolve, most of them, right? The ones that are able to evolve, then of course, they must be part of the solar native code and the conocimiento that is alive, that is able to, you know, be incremented in the present every time it's evoked. So that's why these concepts, the conceptual base is something that is alive, that it's open, that like it's part of our conocimiento, where that is like scalar growth. That's what it is. Oh, Jesus, oh, that's a lot.
Talking.
Okay, let's go to Gerge's questions. Gerge, can you tell me more about creating octaves? It happens in non-linear and in linear. Is it like Infinity 8 movement? Okay. No, it's not like the infinity. Remember, important to not associate any of these concepts to any symbolic references that can be disturbing for it can deform the concepts. So it is better to leave things not understood than to associate it with something from the past, right?
But what I see is when we walk down the Noorden, Neder, that there is a kind of
Yeah,
yeah,
it is an 8. It's an 8, but it's not an infinity.
No, it's not octave.
It's an 8. Okay. No, I'm just clarifying the association.
Yeah, I know. I understand.
Okay, so that is the part that I'm just clearing
Yeah.
up. Now, we're going to move to the concept of the octave. When we have an octave, it means that we have a memory and we have a program that is happening, that is being executed. But when we are talking about an 8 that does not have a program or a memory, or that is inside a cycle, then that's an occurrence. It's just an occurrence. It's something that appears, disappears. It is at the level of 7, 8, 9. But when we're talking about an 8 that covers all 4 cardinalities, then we're
Yeah.
talking about an octave. See? So that's the difference between octave and occurrence.
Okay,
They're both related to the 8.
I understand. Yes. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. Next question. Arreglario. Okay. Yeah. So this concept of arreglario is born on event 57 in Panama. Yes, Panama's code is 507, right? So that 0 inside the 57, remember 0 will always have to do with the solar native code. 57, what is 57? The gravitational administration or interpreter, LA, yes, interpreter, 57, gravitational interpreter. This is because of the position of 57 in the periodic table, which is LA, I believe. Let me just double check. No, yeah. Okay, so arreglario is a function, and it comes out of a little story that Ale, I don't know if have you ever heard this story? It starts with something imaginary, and then it's like the world of the somethings. Something imaginary started to feel a little weird, and it kind of like fell and went outside of the world it knew. So something weird was happening in that imaginary place, and something broke. It's just a story, right? It's a story that Ale tells. I can share it with you guys, and maybe we can translate it. But I don't know if it's gonna be a great translation, because it kind of loses a lot once you move it, because it's a story. But the main thing is that arreglario is this function, something that fixes something. Arreglario is to fix. Okay, so that function of arreglario is related. It's connected to event 57, code 507, and apparatus 507, which is next apparatus. So that function is going to come into play or execution next apparatus 507. But in order for arreglario to come into execution, there needs like all of this previous, everything that has been happening prior to 507 needed to happen. Like all these truths, 506 needed to break, right? So that arreglario, like what is arreglario? This is something that she said in the program. What is arreglario going to fix? We're going to determine in this apparatus what next apparatus arreglario is going to have to fix. Like, are we going to be able to break things in the instance, in a more abstract instance, or are things going to be broken in a material instance? Like, are we going to have to fix things at a material level, which we are? Like, a lot of things are already broken in a material instance. But now maybe we can anticipate it, break the things we need to break in our abstract instance, so that arreglario can like come into that task, can come into play, and then through the apparatus, the solar consciousness know what it needs to fix. So it is a fixing function. That's what arreglario is, basically.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you guys, we still have like a couple of questions left from Marjolaine, but I am really tired already, and it's already 2 hours. But I think that was a lot. I'm gonna have to lay down.
It was great.
Great. It was really great, you guys. Thank you so much for being there, here, for your questions. And I really love it. Love your questions, love your insights. I like what I really want every time is that we have a conversation, that we learn to share a space, that we exercise the expression of the concepts, right? Because it is really important, because maybe we receive it in a way but once I say it back, it's like we need a consensus to be like, okay, yes, that you understood it correctly. Yeah, sometimes we need that, right? To be like, okay, we are doing this social construction of a concept. It is important. That is why LGC never moved past 7011. That's what it is about. Us being able to construct, like to place a new value according to the Solar Native Code to the context, right? So this, one of the things that can be translated to is the sharing of the concepts, right? So it is important that this becomes a space of conversation, that we are able to feel comfortable talking about how we understand things and not being afraid of being wrong or corrected. It's fine. It's perfectly fine. Like being comfortable with making mistakes, which is not easy either. But it's, you know, that's what the space is for. The proper construction, and so that things are clearer and so that we can, you know, understand each other. So I'll leave you guys. It was really great. And Jeff joined us for the first time, so welcome.
Thank you.
I hope you can join us more often, and Molly as well.
Yes.
And yeah, we'll see each other soon.
Wonderful.
Thank you very
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a nice
Bye.
day.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
sleep. Have a good sleep.
Yes.
Have a good sleep.
Yes.
Yes, yes. Sleep is great. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.